Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's going on in their own individual businesses, their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. I've got a fantastic panel of guests, but before I do introduce them, I'd just like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. Absolutely fantastic. So a big thank you to them. Let me introduce you to the panel. We've got Moreton Cullimore, he's the MD of Cullimore Group and Companies, and managing partner of Cullimore Farms. He employs over 100 staff with a turnover of £15 million. Thanks ever so much for joining us. We've got Clare Seed, Director of Tidal Training Direct Ltd, founder of the fantastic public hearts defibrillator campaign. Absolutely amazing things that she's done there. And Sam Holliday, Development Manager of Gloucestershire and the West of England Federation of a Small Business. He's also the ex-editor of the Bath Chronicle newspaper, and he's a subject of my big interview coming up very shortly that we did the other day. So anyway, thank you all for joining us. I'm going to quickly share my screen to see what's making the headlines from the BBC. So here we go. We got Zawali hands over tax returns as Tory urge him to go. That's from the Eye. We've got The Guardian, a slap in the face, anger at U-turn over Windrush, but also the story about this wastage of PPE, £15 billion as well on COVID tests. The Daily Mail, Hunt, time to stop talking Britain down. Couldn't agree more, actually. The Financial Times, Rolls-Royce new chief sees group as burning platform that depletes value. Also, they got the story about the wastage of PPE and COVID tests. Rod, we are failing. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Thank you very much. The Daily Telegraph, Sturgeon trans law in disarray after rapist climb down. Obviously, we got Rod there as well. The Times, PM's foreign student plan to shore up the economy. Quite an interesting thing. I think I would maybe benefit the hospitality trade. We got the Sun newspaper. Love the heading, Freddie slams the brakes on Telly Courier. Then we've got the Metro, under 10s lured into web of evil. The Daily Star, Wolfman not a monster, and we're all doomed, but we knew that anyway. Hopefully this panel isn't. So let's go and see what Sam's picked out.
Well, I think it was quite interesting, that was, Mark. It was always interesting seeing the Daily Star, isn't it? But no newspaper has actually got the same story in a way. Everyone's got a different take. There's no one overriding story. But funny enough, you and I were talking only the other day about newspapers and what keeps them alive and what makes them distinctive. And one thing I like is actually columnists, because you can get the news from lots of different sources, from Punchline, from the BBC, online, whatever, radio. But when you've got time to actually sit down and read a columnist, it's really good. And I was struck by one in the Times today, which was the headline, if you can see it there. You probably can't, so I'll read it out. It's by Gerard Baker, Zoom and Bust, Why Home Working is a Disaster. Now, this is a really interesting article about how a lot of the big tech companies are pulling their people back in. They're actually saying, look, you know, we've enjoyed this experiment, if you like, with home working, but it isn't actually working for us. We want you to sort of come in. And there's a very interesting quote from James Gorman, who's the chief executive of Morgan Stanley, talking about employees. He said, they don't get to choose their compensation. They don't get to choose their promotion. Therefore, they don't get to choose to stay at home 5 days a week. Now, I actually think home working and hybrid working has been a massive success for a lot of people. But it is interesting to see that when, you know, there's more than one viewpoint on this now. And in the article, it says, working from home simply isn't working for many companies. Social isolation has contributed to mental health deterioration for many workers. And it also makes the point that Netflix internal reports say their peak isn't early evening anymore, it's mid-afternoon, implying that some people are maybe by the middle of the afternoon deciding to watch Netflix. Now, I happen to be a big supporter of home working. I work from home, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. But it goes to show that where the narrative once was nobody works from home, now the debate is opening up again. And I kind of think, I'm moving more inclined to thinking that hybrid is definitely the way forward. I was out a couple of times this week, and the conversations you have when you're out and about are so much better. Even something like this, where we can all talk, we're all in our individual slots. Once this turns off, we might carry on chatting. When you're out and about, that happens naturally. But I think home working and stuff that you do at home is brilliant. I mean, networking, for example, I run for the FSB a disabled entrepreneurs networking session. That's wonderful for being virtual. That means anyone from all around the country can tune in. They don't have to worry about driving or anything like that. Access to public transport, things that are fabulous. We've got a networking event at 11 for the whole area. Again, works really well virtually, but you can't beat meeting people face to face. So I think hybrid is probably the way forward. But it's the tech companies, the most advanced companies, the ones that are most progressive, that are really pushing this, because a lot of them are losing. A lot of them are losing staff. Microsoft shedding 10,000 staff, it says here. Google's cut 12,000 jobs, and they're trying to bring people back in to try and see what might be going wrong. So the starting point, what can newspapers offer different? They can offer columnists. And I think that the Times and lots of other papers have got some really, really good columnists. And that one really struck me, that the narrative that home working is the panacea, the answer to all our problems. Already some people are challenging that. So I think hybrid is definitely the future. But that quote really struck me. Why should people be able to choose how often they work in the office? So interesting debate, I think, and just one that I thought was a bit different. So I thought I'd kick off with that.
Okay, thanks ever so much for Sam. That actually is a very nice lead for Moreton, because it is basically impossible for your drivers to work from home. In fact, it's the exact opposite of what you want them to do.
I know. I was just listening there, and it's something that I've debated, like, because of my multi roles and also with the trade association as well, and obviously during COVID, like we did all our board meetings for the RHA like virtually. But I think the first 6 months, what we found was that was great. It was an answer, and we thought it was the way forward. But then after 12 months of it, we were realizing just how many conversations we weren't having, because all of a sudden those board meetings became focused, they're recorded, they're minuted, but we weren't having the conversation and narrative outside of that to actually understand where each other was coming from. And actually we were not making better decisions because of this virtual world we were in. So I am a big believer, and also my industry, like you say, you can only drive a digger sat in the digger. You can only drive a truck. And, I've been trying to recruit the last 12 months to get more people in the business, and everybody wants to work from home. And my industry, you're just not able to do that. You need to be in, you need to be communicating with people. You need to do the toolbox talks. You need to go through those processes, and it's a physical industry. And the biggest challenge for my industry is how do we adapt? How do we still encourage people? And the other thing for us is that the norm now is 35 hours a week. Well, in my industry, it's 50 hours a week. Mm-hmm. How do we encourage the youth and the culture of today is such that only want to do 35 hours, that want to be able to do 2 or 3 days from home? How on earth does a company like mine facilitate that where you need to be in?
It's funny you should say that. If you're the business owner, it probably is the 50 or 60-hour week. But even I would talk to a lot of people, and you are right. The younger people don't want to work those extra hours. They want that life balance. They only want to, and then they're not willing, I hear, to climb the slippery slope to do the extra hours for the extra money. That they actually just want to do the work, go home, forget about it.
I mean, and that may change depending on what happens with the economy, right? But even with the tradies, if you look at them, right, because their hourly rate now is so high, they now don't work 5 days a week. They only work 3 or 4, because they're not trying to increase their total income. They're earning, they want to earn the same, but they're just doing it in less. And now all of a sudden we're all struggling for labor and getting jobs done. I mean, who can get anything done in under 12 months these days? It's ridiculous. 5 years ago, you'd be able to turn things around in 3 months. And there's been a massive cultural shift. And I think we're only starting to really realize just how much that is. And there's a lot of challenges with it.
Totally agree. Have you picked out a story from the press? We can just go over quickly.
So I was going to go very left field on this, just because with my rural living, I think one of the things that helps me decompress from the end of the day, I'm very lucky in the fact that one side of my house there's no street lighting anywhere near, and I can look up at the night sky. And I've just flicked through a lot of the news, and they're talking about this comet that's in our neighborhood at the moment that we've not seen for 50,000 years or whatever. And it's passing by the Big Dipper, as some people call it, or the saucepan or whatever. So that's me. I'm a bit of a stargazer because it brings me mental clarity that when you get so centrally focused on the stresses of what's going on, if you look up there and you go, actually, do you know what? There is a whole world of other stuff out there, and not just the thing that is so focused in my mind at the moment that's causing that anxiety. So yeah, I would encourage everyone to go and find the dark, shady spots and look up. I'm a big believer.
Very good.
Okay, well, thanks very much for that, Morton. That brings us down to Claire. Hi, Claire. Great to join us today. As always, great to have you on the show. What have you picked out for us, please?
Oh, look, I'd just like to echo Morton's reflections there of having perspective and backing that up with Sam's notice of so much going on in the news at the moment. There's a lot of disparity and there's a lot of individual stories, but they kind of have the same theme. So it'd be interesting to hear what the gentlemen think about this. And I'd just like to say, as a director, when it comes to working hours, we don't work part-time, we don't work full-time, we work all the time. And we're heavy duty on commitment, aren't we? Because we're here to get the job done no matter what it takes. So, yes. I'd like to, and it's not a paper I read, but I've just picked out something this morning and I'd like to depoliticize it. And it's Jeremy Hunt's title in the Daily Mail, Time to Stop Dumbing Down Britain, and I'm trying to depoliticize it because it's not about politics. It's about the quality message that we're putting to ourselves, how we communicate to ourselves, both individually, locally, corporately, and here on the global stage. And the way that we're presenting ourselves as a country, so there's cultural conversations going on here, there's ethics and values to consider. We're a great nation. We've got a huge amount to offer each other and the world, socioeconomically, culturally, historically, eco, advancements, tech. But it seems to be, and it'll touch on something else that I'm going to bring out through the Punchline local story, the press seem to like dumbing down stories, politicizing them, running them as a thematic review, if you like, when we could really be talking things up. And I'll use an example. About a month ago, just coming up to Christmas, oh, we're forecasting recession, it's going to be really difficult, etc., etc. But when the stats come out and we've actually done plus 0.1 GDP, no one talks about that because it isn't a story. It isn't the story that they want. And what I've noticed recently, and particularly since we've all come out of COVID, and there's this increased pace of money and gain, and we all have a duty of care to tell the story in its entirety, not the story that people or editors think we want to hear, because what we're doing unintentionally there is giving an unintentional one-sided view of the whole story. And we all know who does this very well. The BBC do it very well nationally. And it's important that we tell the whole truth, not just a bit that suits us to peddle a story. And I know that there are, everyone has reflective things of where we put a story to the news. And if it's not the one they want to hear, they might not put that forward in the way that suits them. And I can see nods going on around the panel. I'm very interested in what you think about that, because how we present ourselves on a global theatre and a global forum is incredibly important. So what do you think about that, gentlemen?
Well, I'll give it to Morton first and then back over to Sam.
I always look, I'm a believer in positive narrative first. And I think, what I've been saying, for the last, since the credit crunch is like, we talked ourselves into that even worse economy than was in front of us. And I worry that we have this in front of us now with the economy right now. And, the thing is that we are saturated with so many platforms, not just of like the classic media, but of social media as well, where everyone's got an opinion And when that snowballs, even if that opinion is completely factually incorrect, it gathers huge momentum. And I think, to bring it back a little bit, as business leaders or whatever, our job is to say, actually, do you know what? We're still trading okay. There's still things out in the future. And I think we all have to wear some of the for want of a better phrase, responsibility of actually saying, I'm not buying into this constant negativity that we are surrounded, and that I'm going to look at what's in front of my own face first, rather than this world that we're surrounded of being fed different things. And the last year of my experience in media with this trade association role I perform, is I realized just how much we are subject to someone else's agenda and someone else's narrative. And I don't want to be some big conspiracy theorist about it, but I have seen firsthand, I've done a TV interview on a Friday morning, and they have literally edited my answers to a live question show in the morning and used them with a totally different reporter on a Sunday, and then chopped me into things. Wow. So my answers looked like I was being live on Sunday again, but it wasn't. It was from the Friday morning show. And that was to create a narrative. And that just blew my mind, because you're always aware of these celebrity stories, is it based on fact? Is it whatever? I am no one. I'm just a sweaty, independent truck guy in Gloucestershire, and that can happen to me. And it's just, the last year has just shown me that how much we are subject to everyone else's control of narrative. And I think we've just got to go out there and to use a cliche term, just keep it real with the people that we come into contact with.
No, totally agree. I'll pass this over to Sam, but thanks for the new nickname, by the way. And Sam, what's your view of it? Obviously, ex-editor of the Bath Chronicle newspapers, worked in local press a long time.
Yeah.
And the narrative of it, really, because I always think the role of journalism is to tell the news.
Yeah,
it's not about opinion and trying to give the facts. And that because it's 24-hour news, they have to puff it up. And so you've got all these people just giving their opinion. And you're right, Morton. They've all got their own individual agenda. So what's your view? I've been working the media all this time.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think social media has changed the narrative, because social media, there's so much extremes in there. When I was a newspaper editor in Bath and up in my native Midlands in Tamworth, you do everything you can to make it as balanced as possible. No story will go out that 2 points of view. Social media, you don't have to do that. So you can say whatever you like. And if that's the only bit of social media you read about a story, you could believe that's the truth. And it's so hard to stay balanced. And I think I've said to you this, Mark, and I'm sure lots of other editors have said the same. I've had people, when I was a newspaper editor, accusing me of being biased to one party. At the same time, someone else would accuse me of being biased to the other. And I thought I must be doing okay. But I don't think people worry about that anymore. I really don't. But in terms of the narrative, it is hard. And it's funny, I was going to talk about what we did this week with the FSB. We released we do a quarterly report of business confidence. And it's always done retrospectively. So the last one was for the end of last year, so October to the end of the year. And it's just come out. And it's very, very low. In fact, it's a record low. It's the worst we've ever seen. Now, as a natural born optimist, somebody wants to talk up business and talk up Gloucestershire, I can't ignore that. That is news. So it isn't negative news or positive news. It's news. And so I had to put it out, but I did try and balance it. I made sure that, a quote went in saying, let's hope this is the bottom now. Let's hope now it's the only way is up, because that's the way to do it, because we can't ignore what people are telling us, however much we don't want to do it. And I remember someone saying to me once, when I was a newspaper editor, why don't you just put good news in the paper? And I would say, well, if I were to tell you that if something awful happened in this community, if there was a murder or there was floods like happened in Gloucestershire, should we not put that in? I mean, that's not, it's not about good news and about bad news, it's about news. And as long as it's balanced, that's the only thing that matters to me. And it's difficult sometimes. I remember Emily Maitsis, who used to be on News Now, saying once they did a story about Brexit where everybody seemed to have the same opinion, and they had to ring 40 people to find one person to disagree. And on that night's show, these two people were as if it was equal. Now that is good. That is responsible journalism. Is that really true? 40 people think one thing, experts, one person thinks the same, but they were both on the same panel. And I think it is so difficult. So I can understand the frustrations with people with the press, but trust me, the vast majority of press do their best to keep it as unbiased as they can. The newspaper's slightly different. I mean, you can see it every week, but I still stick with the BBC. I'm still a BBC loyalist. I think it does a really good job. So if in doubt, Punchline and the BBC. There you go.
Punchline every day. Thanks for that. Right, let's go over to you, Moreton, and your own individual business, because you've had a planning application, a special meeting yesterday, wasn't it? Can you just explain about that, please? What it was and what actually happened?
So we had, I mean, this is 4.5 years of work. It's also been over 18 months of delays going to planning committees for various reasons, from someone didn't post a PDF document on the planning portal, so it wasn't correctly consulted on. There's been 3 years of public consultation, so there's a wry smile when I say that. But
yeah, where is it, first of all? Sorry.
So it was for a new quarry up by junction 1 of the M50, so sort of Tewkesbury, Ripple, Twinning sort of area. We've owned some land up there for 40 years, which we've farmed, we've cropped every year for barley and wheat, and that's what it's been. It's been fields that have, you know, supplied feed to our cattle. But there's over 2 million tons of sand and gravel of the highest quality quartzite material, which is just perfect for every engineered building construction purpose you can think of. It's less susceptible to acid rain, so it would create a product, whether it's roof tiles, whether it's bricks, whether it's concrete for foundations. It would produce a very, very hard wearing, long-standing building product. It's a cross-boundary application. 60 hectares of the sites are in Worcestershire, and 20 hectares of the sites are in Gloucestershire. We need the Gloucestershire part because the A38 goes through the Gloucestershire part, and we need to have an HGV access route into the sites, and it's the most appropriate place to put it off the A38 rather than, you know, B or C class roads. Worcestershire passed our application unanimously, absolutely unanimously, back in October. Same mirrored application, other than it doesn't feature the entrance and the processing plant. But Gloucestershire yesterday were somewhat hoodwinked by the let's say the green influence of the committee, and despite the application going with full officer support, full legal support, full you know, all the experts that consult for Gloucestershire, not just for Cullimores, but for Gloucestershire, they were all, you know, 300-page reports that the councillors were supposed to have read. But if you saw them asking some of the questions, I don't think they did. Despite all of their advice saying that it should be passed for approval, and that's what Worcestershire had all done, they made it about something outside of planning policy framework and decided to refuse it based on the climate crisis. Yet they are non-understanding of, we've got this Tewkesbury development plan, we've got this Cheltenham development plan, we've got the A417 missing link, just to name 3, which are all long-term projects and need mineral on the doorstep. Well, this quarry would have had mineral on the doorstep that would have lasted projects of 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
Yet they said no. Gloucestershire overwhelmingly import mineral from other counties, most of it North Wiltshire. It's an hour and 20 minutes by truck. Yet they have got mineral on the doorstep of the highest quality, and they refused it based on climate. It's the reverse logic here is mind blowing. Is absolutely mind blowing. I could go on, Mark, but that's it in a nutshell. We don't have have our planning consent. We have no option but to appeal it. And you know, their lawyers, the Gloucestershire County Council's lawyers, actually advised them it's highly likely that we would be successful in an appeal process because of all of the support from the experts in the framework. And the council has said, well, we'll just have to wear those costs. So it's gonna cost me 2 years and a pile more money, and give my staff uncertainty for the next 2 years. But it's also going to cost the taxpayer a whole pile of money because they decided to go on this climate crisis, which isn't even in the framework for making the decision in the first place.
Wow.
Mind blowing.
All right. Well, thanks very much for that, Morton, and for being so honest about it. I won't ask you how you feel about it because we won't go down that route, mate. All right. We're running out of time, but thanks ever so much for that. Claire, your defib, it seems to get bigger and bigger all the time. How many have we got now in Cheltenham?
Well, I'm delighted to say that I made another 2 public access this week, and I'm very proud to announce our partnership with Cheltenham Borough Council, Cheltenham Borough Homes, and related public properties in and around Cheltenham to make as many of their defibs public access, and where there isn't supportive coverage, to donate defibrillators in that ilk. So we're on number 43. We are Cheltenham's founding 100% not-for-profit and double award-winning community defibrillator campaign. So it's going from strength to strength. You're absolutely right. And I couldn't be prouder of it. It really is saving lives, Mark.
And let's be honest, let's talk about your own individual business, Tidal Training Direct. You've been going for quite some time
the day
as well.
job.
What is actually the day job? I'm kind of running out of time. So what is the day job for you guys?
The day job is I'm the founder director of Tidal Training Direct. I run a national team of state registered paramedics and resource officers and first responders who are all teacher qualified, highly competent, and most of them former combat, teaching everything pre-hospital, first aid related, both in and out of the workplace. So everything from anaphylaxis to wound care management, low risk, high risk, off the scale. And our particular speciality here in Cheltenham is making sure that we are facilitating life-saving kit in the community to support someone in the event of a cardiac arrest, because there are 30,000 out-of-hospital cardiac arrests every year. So we're here to educate, inform and inspire and give people the kit to help someone when they need it most. And as you can tell, we're highly motivated, Mark.
We can indeed. I know your love, drive and enthusiasm always drives you forward. And as someone who suffered a heart attack myself, yes. Obviously you've got my full backing of support as much as we can. It goes without saying. Sam, what have you picked out from this week's Punchline, please?
We talk about wanting to be positive, and there are, this is great positivity on Punchline this week. I was looking this week, I think I mentioned it to you, about how pleased I was to see Waterstones doing well, because I want to see the High Street doing well. But you just delve into Punchline this week, and it isn't just Waterstones. You've mentioned Gloss Keys, you mentioned Crew Clothing, you've mentioned Poundland, you've mentioned Primark, all reporting really good figures. And it's great to see the High Street, which a lot of people have been very quick to sort of write off, having a bit of a fight back, if you like. And I think that's great. So, I represent small businesses, but we need those big businesses to be doing well. So people are going in to use them, so they use the small businesses. So really, really pleased, particularly pleased with like Waterstones. In theory, Waterstones is a company that shouldn't exist. We can all get our books quite cheaply on Amazon, whatever. But no, people still want to go in, pick up a book, feel a book, sit down, think about buying it. And to see it doing so well along with their other shops, great to see Gloss Keys doing well as well. The High Street is fighting back, so we want to be positive this morning. So I think that's brilliant news.
And it also followed on the figures for Regent's Arcade as well, which also had a bumpy Christmas. So you're right, there is some good stuff out there. Morton, what have you picked out for us, please?
For me, it's your generalized theme: skills, apprenticeship, careers, bringing young people on in all industries, especially the transport, haulage, and construction industry, but I think also, again, judging on what I saw yesterday, is trying to get young people or younger people into more of the layers of our communities and giving them experience and training them. Because at the moment, I think we're very beholden to a certain section of the community. And I think we have to do more to be inclusive and encourage people to get involved in things.
Is this the average age of a councillor?
It may well be.
Okay. Claire, thanks ever so much for that. Claire, what have you picked out in this week's Punchline, please?
Well, I'm echoing a story that that's on Punchline this week. and that you've also put in the big punchline. And it's about local radio and local press not getting the investment that it needs, independent journalism, which you champion so beautifully, Mark, and also about, you know, here in December you were talking about the Gloucestershire radio cuts as well. Local people needing local news. We need to have a regional perspective on what's going on nationally and how it affects us. And it's important that we get an impartial educational voice to champion that, as you do, but we need more of it to broaden the scope and understanding and get and facilitate local engagement that then feeds up nationally up the food chain rather than it just coming down to us.
No, thanks ever so much for that. I couldn't agree more, actually. And what's frightening about that story is if it was to go to where they cut it, all that'll happen is the BBC Radio would actually put more of their content online, and they actually become more of a bigger competitor rather than a unique product that services everybody. I just don't get it. So my story of the week, unfortunately, is a bit of a negative story. I always like to find the positive, but it is actually about the Gloucestershire accountant bookkeeper who abused her trusted position and a bid to cheat 3 small businesses out of £150,000. She was jailed for 2.5 years and 4 months yesterday. Lady from Gloucestershire, I won't say her name. But what was really sad about the story is that there was a company called PMP Genesis that she actually stole from money. £26,448.90 she's alleged to have stolen from them. And the company has since been dissolved. This fine lady actually phoned me up 2 or 3 times to ask me to take down the story during the court case, saying that she was going to sue us. So I just want to say about local journalism, everything else like that, it is still strong out here. We do fight the case. I'm sure that Sam knows exactly how I feel when you get those phone calls, and it's a bit difficult calls sometimes. Anyway, thank you to my fantastic panel. I'd like to thank Hayeswood's accountants and fantastic business advisors. We couldn't do the show without them. And to my brilliant panel and you, the viewers. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks very much. And I always have trouble finding my button to switch off my video, but no, it's not that. Hold on a second. Where's the button gone? Where's the button gone, guys? Hold on, here we go. No.
He's going to make us do this all again, Moreton.
I'm not going to make you do it all again. Do you know what? I don't understand why the buttons have moved. There we go. Right. Thank you ever so much. Catch you again next week. Bye.
Bye.